All right, so hi guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Ghost Soap. The name is a combination of my two favorite COD characters from the COD universe. Yeah, I know, big brain. Yeah. So I just wanna tell you guys briefly what the channel will be about. It's gonna be basically a diary. Oh, that's kind of pause. A journal. Yeah, it's gonna be a journal about games that I play. I'll just give my opinions, kind of like review recent games that I've played. I'll also talk about gaming news and give my opinions on certain things that are happening in the industry. And I don't have a bunch of credentials behind my name. So it's just the opinion of a guy that has played a lot of games. I've been playing games since I was a kid. That's my only credential. Alright, so like the video title says, this will be a review of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and let's just get into it. So the premise of the story is that for decades, survivors on the floating island Lumiere watched the anonymous monolith with a big number on it, and annually on a specific date there's a paintress, this big lady that paints a number on said monolith. That leads to the sudden disappearance of anyone that age, which is referred to as the Gamage. So the inhabitants of the island sent out a group of explorers on an expedition to investigate how to put an end to this event. Hence, we follow this year's expeditionaries Gustave, Mayel, and Lune. Side note, the expeditions are numbered by the said number that's on the monolith, so that's how we get 33. Without going to heavy spoilers, the expeditioners venture out of Lumiere, and as they hit land, bro, they get murked. Half of them die. You being Gustav, you have to pull yourself through the depths of despair and PTSD and find the rest of the survivors and rally everybody together and try to put an end to the Gamache, this event that kills everybody. So yeah, the story gets pretty dark. The developer is Sunfall Interactive, a French indie studio founded in 2020 by former Ubisoft veteran Guillaume Brochet. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name. He felt limited in his creativity. Surprise there. And wanted to make his own game with more creative freedom. They started with a small group of max around 10 people and then expanded to roughly 34 through sponsorships. They had a vision: create a high-quality, story-driven RPG inspired by classic JRPGs, but with modern visuals and mechanics. And yeah, they hit the nail on the head. Spoiler alert, the game is great. Yeah, like one of my favorite characters, the Ackman, shout out to the Ackman, keeps preaching that this is exactly what more of the industry needs. Smaller studios working on passion projects, focusing on creating something that they are proud of. And what fans of whatever genre they're focusing on will love it. Stop trying to appeal to the masses and chasing trends. So yeah, the game is a turn-based RPG with some interesting mechanics. Dodging, parrying, and it also has a shooting mechanic. I've never played a turn-based game that combines all three mechanics, and it works. I love the parrying and dodging system. The window for parries are much shorter than the window for dodging, but if you can get past your ego, you can take like no damage. You can legit dodge everything. But me, I come from playing Sekiro and Dark Souls, so I have to parry everything. Also, I forget to mention that there's a reason the parry window is smaller, because if you successfully parry an attack or sequence of attacks, your team or individual will perform a counter attack, hitting for big damage. And when that happens, the neurons in my brain go off, I see the big number on the screen, I am pleased. But yeah, Most of the time, my ego gets in the way and I mess up.
Got him!
Yeah, and the shooting mechanic. It comes into play with specific enemies that can only be hit with range attacks. Also, some enemies have weak points that you can shoot at and trigger extra damage and weird status effects that happen. Sometimes you do kill the enemy, but killing them buffs the other enemies. It's cool, it's interesting. For the gameplay mechanics, they really flex their muscles here because each character that joins your party has a unique mechanic. Gustav, having a pretty simple one, each of his attacks build charge or charges toward his weird arm thingy. Yo, it has a name but I don't remember what they call it. And when you build like 10 charges, he unleashes a big attack that does pretty decent damage. Like I said, pretty straightforward. Then there's Mael. She has 3 different stances. Yeah, each stance gives her a buff and a debuff. Well, 2 out of the 3. One stance is a straight up buff, but there's like a little more complex way to get into that stance. Then there's Lune, who has elemental stains. She's like the mage of the group. Depending on the spells she used that turn, she gets 1 out of 4 elemental stains: earth, lightning, fire, and ice. So some abilities gives you more than 1 stain, but spells get buffed or inflict status effects based on the stains that you have when you're casting the spell. But like I said, I don't want to get into heavy spoilers. There's other characters that join the party later in the story and each of them has their own unique mechanic, and it just keeps the combat fresh and interesting. The gearing system in the game is pretty simplistic. The only gear you'll find are weapons and pictos. Pictos I'll explain a little bit later, but yeah, the weapons, they're unique for each character and they each have a different type of buff and elemental damage attached to it. And leveling up your weapons unlock unique perks. Funny enough, there is no like armor that you equip in the game, but honestly I played through the entire game and I didn't even notice. I mean, there is armor, but not in the traditional sense. But yeah, pictos, I mentioned them earlier. They're like, how do I explain this? They're like runes each character can equip. Each character can equip 3 of them. They usually give a unique buff or ability. Also, the pictos have levels and stats attached when equipped into the character. Like 1 picto gives you the chance to attack twice during a turn. Grants bonus damage. Hell, there's one that makes you die at the start of the battle, and there's other that revives you once a fight. You can combine both of them, so like there's some buffs in the game that you get from dying. So if you combine both, you die at the start, you get revived, and you get the buffs. So yeah. Also, there's another system about the pictos. You can learn pictos and equip the pictos to each character without actually having the picto equipped to the slot. So yeah, after 4 battles, you learn the picto and you can equip it without having it actually equipped. Yo, this system really allows you to craft some crazy builds that can just one-shot enemies and bosses. I almost forgot to mention the typical RPG progression systems that are in the game. Leveling up gives you stat points that you can allocate to different attributes, and weapons scale differently depending on which stats you invest in. You can also earn ability points that can be used on each character's individual ability tree to unlock new skills. On top of that, there are materials you can collect to upgrade your character, or even respec their stat distribution, encouraging you to experiment with different builds and weapons. Let's get into the other parts of the game. The world that Sandfall created is stunning, beautiful. No, I'm not kidding. Oftentimes I'm like, wow, what acid trip or what kind of high were these guys on to create some of these environments? Like even the color palettes and combination of some of the colors on some worlds just make it so gorgeous. And yeah, they really use up Unreal 5 and managed not only to make the game look good, but the performance is not actually bad. Like I got a solid 60 FPS on my Radeon 6800 XT. Just hats off to them for making a fairly optimized UE5 game. I mean, honestly, the way UE5 has been going, I honestly thought that Epic were the only ones that knew how to utilize it and make it make sense performance-wise. So yeah, graphics and world building, 10 out of 10 IGN. Yeah, the story, the writing, and the characters, specifically the dialogue, is phenomenal. The characters are actually respond and react to situations in a real way. Like, you can tell how deep the relationships are between each characters. There are no character tropes in here. I couldn't really guess the direction each of them would go. There's a little system that allows you to have conversations with each character and increase the level of the relationships between you and the main guy. Usually after a while I just skip through stuff like this, but I found myself really listening to each one because, again, the dialogue and characters are so well written. And the actual story, listen, I personally, like, this is my opinion, I judge the story based on how predictable it can be, and trust me, the story is not in the slightest. I just remembering having more questions as the story progressed and being like, how is this going to all come together? And anybody remember Lost, that series that went on forever, and you're like, what the fuck? Just having more questions as the season went on. And at the finale, you're like, what the fuck was that? You're more confused. You have to like look up Lost season finale explain, ending explain. Yeah, the game is kind of like that, but it's the total opposite. The finale and final reveal and closing chapter just bring everything together in such a satisfying and roundabout conclusion. Chef kiss. Chef kiss. Oh yeah, to finish off my Glaze Fest, the music. I remember reading or hearing that they found a composer on Reddit, and it's like Sunfall just has an eye for talent, because this is nice. Yeah, I'm just going to give you a sample of one of the bangers.
I'll do it. So little for us. A storm is coming.
The tracks just layer on the emotion while playing, and it's not short on certified bangers too. So yeah, the game is really great. The only thing that happened was in the third act that I kind of lost some steam. Like, I kind of got tired. I don't know, I kind of just lost interest slightly, kind of like slowing down. The pace of the game kind of slowed down, but I don't really want to give it as a slight to the game, but more a personal thing, because I decided just to push through, and the fire was eventually ignited again as I wrapped up some in-game content and decided to beat the final boss. So in conclusion, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a great game. Like, you guys need to check it out. I'd recommend giving it a play. Definitely deserves a playthrough. I mean, it's on Game Pass, so that's a definite steal. This game performed so good. I don't even think it's the first game I think performed this well on Game Pass. Like, the sales are crazy, and it's been in a lot of conversations regarding Game of the Year, and it totally deserves it. Sunfall really did a good job here. And yeah, guys, that's the end of the video. This is my first video for the channel, so I'm just gonna say like and subscribe and stay tuned for more. The next video it'll be won't be so scripted. It'll be a rant about Monster Hunter. Spoilers. Be a rant about Monster Hunter and my love and hate relationship with that game, and how Capcom just kind of shitted it down the toilet. I don't know, they really, you know what, yeah, I'll save it for the video. So yeah guys, peace.